Okay, here we go. So, before we get on to this little voice that I want to talk about, I haven't actually had a difference in those voices for a long time, and yet lately I noticed one even just the other day because it was telling me little things where I can help people, meaning like um, reminding someone about something because they tell me, maybe you should remind them, and I'm like, oh no, I'm sure they got it, and then it's like, oh, you should have reminded them, and it would have just saved a few moments here or there, saved a few things. So that's where I'm at it. But what I'm trying to say is, I have built on that voice for so long that I'm actually not sure about the other voices people might hear in this. Sorry. In this, but I'm going to tell you a few things that I do know and a few things that I have heard. So one thing I do know is that with technology and where it's gotten, I know some people might not want to believe this, but the CIA has admitted that they do have a heart attack gun, okay? A gun that they can, from far distance, hit someone who target, and it can create something that people can get a heart attack. Now, that was admitted in the 1970s, okay, out to the public, okay? Now it's 2018. Imagine what's going on now. I'm not saying this to scare you, okay? Because if anything, I wish you to know, no technology, and I mean no technology, can ever, ever affect the human spirit when it is powerful, more than anything. The human spirit cannot be affected by any technology. So, but it can be if the human doesn't realize that they are not have not built their boundaries and power and allowance. And this is what I'm going to talk about, free will and choice. And this is why it's so important that we build on ourselves, is because we don't understand that where things are going, there can be influences that can influence our minds instead of ourselves knowing for sure it is ourselves. And this is why we need to build on ourselves. So, another technology that they have, which they have not fully admitted to, like the heart attack gun, but have, slips out there, is they have technology now that can, it's called, what's the voice? Is it the voice of God? It's something, and it's basically a voice that they have out there that talks to you as well, so that you can't, if you haven't built within yourself the differences in the voices that you hear, you might not be sure if that voice is your voice, your higher self's voice, or the technology voice that is influencing you on what you need to do. Again, not trying to say this stuff to scare you, just telling you where things are going and why it's important for us to build on ourselves. So when you build with yourself and your voice, you actually end up recognizing the feeling that it builds within you. That feeling that, I can't, that doesn't feel good. And if I don't listen to it, it doesn't feel good. And when you align with yourself and start building, there starts being, you can no longer live that way. Meaning that you can't pretend to live with all your different masks. You can't pretend to not be authentic to yourself. You can't pretend to not be authentic all the time, truly. And in that authenticity, this is the other thing, is people tend to believe that when you're honest, that there's only one way, one result, one that your greatest fears becomes your reality. That if you were to speak, whatever you are worried about, why you didn't speak in the first time, is what happens to you. But that's exactly why I have been saying over and over again, it is all what you sell your mind. So most of that is fear, which is an illusion, meaning that a lot of the things that we feed our mind of why we're not going to do something is because the fear. And then we choose not to do it. And that is exactly what the fear is there for, so that you choose not to do it. Because when you do in this life, in action, when we put things concrete, that is when things change. That is when all the power happens. And you'll learn this more and more, and you might know it already because it's really crazy, huge, and very, responsible. When we wield this power, we definitely need to be responsible and know who we are and what our intentions are, which is why it's important, and which is why I understand why we come here, not knowing our true form, true power, until we understand who we are. So I know a lot of people tend to look at coming into this place, into life, as a prison, as how could we, a lot of people view this place as hell, and I don't love that people do. I get why you do. I get it. I fully get it. And in ways, it's self-created hell. I'm sorry, it is, because it's the way you view things. And that's the thing about Earth, Mothership Earth. Mother Earth is so amazing. Mother Earth loves you so much that she allows you to create whatever reality you wish here on Earth, no matter how far it damages her, no matter how far it destroys her, no matter how badly you wish to look upon her, even though all she is doing is loving you and allowing you to go to whatever depths you need to go to learn who you are, to choose to be who you are, and to recognize your power in choice of experience and bringing upon what is life. And just so you know, no, this is not the only life. There are many, many, many. So no, you didn't screw up. And just so you know, even in your own life right now, there is never a moment where you screwed up, even if you felt like you did, even if you felt like you did right now. Because every moment of now is an opportunity for you to do whatever it is that you wish about any freaking moment of whatever. It is an opportunity. And in that, it does suck, because a lot of people, I'm sure, will feel regret and will feel a lot of things in that, but don't, because all of those moments brought you to now, to feel you for the moment of now when you decide to do something now. And that's what you need to forgive yourself for, is that it took what it took to bring you to now. So when you get through all of this forgiveness and all that kind of stuff, is because that little voice is buried beneath all of those responsible voices that you have put there, all the things that you think that you need to do because of the way we have been raised, all the things that you think that, I can't even stress enough on how much the perspectives that we choose to view life pushes down our little voice that tells us the true truths of everything that we actually wish to experience. I can't even stress enough about how when we were kids, remember what we were told about adults and remember what we thought about the adults, and now you are one of those adults, and what do you think of that kid now, and were they wrong, and were they any of this? And no, it's not. They're not wrong. We do get jaded as adults. We do tend to forget. And we need to remember our full selves. And everyone telling yourselves that that kid can exist where you are now, that's exactly why you're living that life you are right now, because of what you tell yourself. So within this voice that resonates within, I'm sorry, but it does have to do with a lot of healing deep, deep, deep down that you have pushed down there, that you have told yourself that you might not need to deal with, or you don't have time to deal with, or how can you deal with that, or you don't need to deal with that, or it's strength not to deal with it. I'm sorry. Everything is meant to come up. It doesn't mean that you need to know the answer right now. It doesn't mean that you need to know what to do. In truth, we do know what to do. But what we need to do is let go of all of that pain and trauma and suffering. And I'm sorry, most times that leads to crying. Now, the thing about it is, it's not like all of a sudden after all this time that you have pushed down your tears that you can just be like, okay, I'm going to cry, and you cry. It honestly takes time. The true thing is, it's mostly deciding. Every single thing has to do with intention, is because the realm of everything around us cannot do what we don't allow. At the same time, if you do not say that you allow or don't allow, and your mind kind of takes you on thoughts, it kind of gives permission in some ways that you might not have realized that you allowed. And so in some ways, when you think you didn't allow, you may have allowed without knowing. And also there is the allowance of soul self when we made the contracts. But what I mean to say is, if now you do not wish to deal with negative or dark forces, you can totally put boundaries there and say that you do not allow the darkness, or you do not allow the negative, or I only allow the negative that helps me with the positive, or whatever learns my lessons, I'll help with some of those words later when we talk about that. I just don't want this episode to get off track on that one. But basically what I'm trying to say is, we do know the path deep within. It's just that we have forgotten how to listen to ourselves, and we don't take the time to listen to ourselves. And when it's not going how we expect, we tend to stop. When we forget patience is a virtue, and when we sit there and we don't get the answer that we expect right away, we tend to get frustrated and stop. But what I'm trying to say is, you need to do everything opposite than what you normally would do. You need to sit there and recognize that you are a priority, that you love yourself enough to take the time to do it, and recognize that it is work at first, but it's the same work you put into every other relationship. So why is it different for you? Why is it different for you? So take the time, and everyone's path is different. So everyone, I do believe that we are all intuitively led, meaning that whatever thought processes come, whatever draws you, whatever interests you, whatever sparks in that moment, follow it and see where it goes. And even if you get lost in that moment, be like, I don't even know where this is going, and then go somewhere else. It's about just going with the flow, about recognizing that sometimes in those places where you pass out and go black, and then you're just like, I don't even know what happened there. Was it worth it? Yes, you need to go through all those times, okay? Because in truth, those black times are because it's too deep for you at the moment. In those black times it's not that you're not doing anything. You don't recognize what you're doing consciously, but you're actually going really, really deep, which is why you pass out. And then when you wake up, and after you've done it a few times, you actually learn to be able to handle it more and more. And it ends up that you don't black out anymore. And it ends up that you actually go places that you wish to go. And when you let things out, in little ways, if it's crying, if it's writing your journal, if it's going somewhere and screaming, if it's taking a bath, whatever it is, if it's working out like crazy, if it's doing your activity, if it's music, whatever it is to you, whatever you do, that is a release. Let stuff go. It allows room for you, other thoughts to come, and listen, try to listen. And again, the voice that resonates. We can eventually tell. Even if you're asking, is this the voice? Is this the voice? Listen to what makes you feel good. I always go with what makes you feel good. And sometimes if it's the deep, dark voice and you are attracted to your desires and temptations, you do know that. It's not that you don't. And if it feels good, go for it that time. But eventually you decide that it doesn't feel good anymore. We do know the differences. It's just if we listen to the differences. It's just if we are honest to ourselves, if we admit to ourselves. But you need to try. You can't just be like, oh, like, I think that it's just try. And there is no right or wrong, and there really is no good or bad. But again, go with what feels good. The thing about what feels good is you need to understand what's comfortable for some. Sometimes where you're at, what's comfortable for you is the dark energies, is the kind of more neutral energies, or is the very light energies. And you need to recognize that. But soon you also need to recognize that we need to be open to it all, because the all is what is part of us. So I'm sorry for the people who are all about light. I understand light, and if you wish to be light the full time, go for it. But you need to understand that you're not a light that judges the dark, because then that's not accepting. I was a light that was very fearful of the dark, and I had to go on a journey to recognize the darker parts of myself, and then appreciate them and love them, accept them, and then choose myself. And in that is when I became my whole self. And in truth, the positive only self of me did not understand. While I could empathize and sympathize because I could just feel, it wasn't as much understanding as I am now, because now I understand the darkness and how it believes it's the light is because the darkness does bring about the light, and I'm sorry, the light does bring about darkness, and vice versa, and continuous, and it's constant, and it's about each side playing their roles. And that is true forgiveness and understanding and realizing and non-judgment. That is the true appreciation of each other and self, and understanding and realizing what we each bring to each other, which is experience for our own growth. And that is true love. That is true pure love. And right now, the majority of us are not experiencing that, because from both sides, you're mirroring each other. Both sides, too much for each other. The light is too bright, and the dark is too scary. And there's a lot of judgment in there. So inside yourself, that voice, just feel it. Honestly, it's the most loving voice. It's so funny, this episode totally didn't go how I wanted, but I'm going to post it anyways because there is a lot in it. And I'll just go with it because that's the way it's meant to go. I love you all. Thanks for being here. I hope it helped in some way. I honestly have no clue. Love you all.